Look at this elegant lace earring. So pretty, so shiny, and absolutely gorgeous. In this video, I'll show you exactly how I made them. Hello everyone! To start, I am preparing wooden shapes. I have a whole collection of them, different sizes and forms, and they are very easy and comfortable to work with. You can also use paper or plastic, but for me, wood is my favorite base. I'm selecting both small and larger shapes because I like to use my material fully. Some people prefer bigger earrings, others like smaller ones, so I prepare a variety. I'm selecting 4 vibrant colors and different shapes to help inspire your own creative choices and make the process feel exciting. I slowly cover one side of each piece, making sure the paint goes on evenly. And yes, I also paint the back side. It gives a much more finished look. This is probably the longest part of the process, just preparing the bases. But I don't mind because I'm not only working on this project, I'm also preparing extra shapes for future ideas. So in a way, I'm going 2 things at once, getting ready for this design and for the next ones as well. Acrylic paint dries quite fast. Usually it takes about 1 hour to dry completely, but if you want to be sure, you can wait for 2 hours. In practice, by the time I finish painting all the shapes, the first ones are already dry. Next, I use white acrylic paint. It is a very good base, but you can also use a white primer or other type of artist paints if you prefer. I also love lavender. It's a very popular color right now and it works beautifully with the materials I'm going to use in this project. So I added a few shapes in lavender as well. And the last color is black. Again, I'm using acrylic paint. Black is a very versatile background. It pairs with many different materials and design ideas. I've shown lace earrings in the previous video where I used nail foil, and black works especially well for that kind of effect too. Once all the pieces are painted, I set them aside to dry completely. Since it was already evening, I continued the project next day. In the morning, everything is fully dry, and the colors look beautiful. I paint both sides, and sometimes I also add extra details using acrylic paint markers to introduce more variations. As you can see, the palette becomes much more vibrant, not just simple black but a mix of colors. Now for the next step, I'm using beautiful lace I found on Temu.com. A yard costs around 6 or 7 Canadian dollars, so it's quite affordable. The best part is that it's sticky lace, which means it adheres directly to the surface, no glue needed. It works well with almost any color. Even on bright backgrounds, it looks elegant. And on red, it looks absolutely stunning. That's why I prepared so many colorful bases. Now I need to decide how to cut the lace. I can place it vertically or horizontally, so I experiment a bit to use what works best. I use the material efficiently, saving smaller pieces for later use or smaller shapes. I carefully plan each cut, aiming for symmetry and efficiency so you can feel confident in creating polished, professional-looking earrings. Now I'll show you the best way to apply the lace. I gently lift a corner of the sticky lace with a craft knife. Then carefully place it on wooden base, checking the alignment as I go. I use a sharp craft knife and gently lift one corner. Once you catch the edge, you'll see how easy the lace starts to peel away from the backing. I gently place and adjust the lace, knowing it's easy to reposition, which helps you feel more confident. Try this technique yourself. Once I'm happy with the placement, I gently press it down with my fingers to make sure it adheres completely. The adhesive is strong enough, so there is no need for additional glue. The first pair of the future earrings is now ready, and the next step is trimming the edges. I use a cutting board and a craft knife. It is a simple process, but it makes a big difference. The edges come out very smooth, clean, and precise, which is exactly what you want for earrings. And look at this. It is already beautiful, shiny, elegant, and very refined. I don't throw away any leftover pieces. Even the smallest fragments can be used to create tiny earrings. That's why I work with a range of shapes and sizes, from very small to larger pieces. Even the tiniest bits of lace can become something delicate and beautiful. Here's an example, a small, elegant pear. Not every earring has to be a statement piece. Sometimes subtle designs are even more appealing. I've used different colored bases, and honestly, I can even choose a favorite. They all look unique and beautiful in their own way. What makes me especially happy is that I use almost every bit of the material. There's barely any waste, just tiny scraps left. And it's very cost effective, as you can create this from this 1 yard of lace. Any remaining painted shapes can be used for future projects, which I'll share later. I usually spend just a couple of hours a day working on my jewelry. I have other things to do, but on days like this, cold, snowy, even so it's already spring, it's the perfect time to stay in the studio and enjoy a bit of quiet, creative work. Now I'm going to cover the back side with varnish. I use a professional triple thick varnish and apply it with a brush, using just a small amount. It is important not to overdo it too much. Varnish can cause the piece to stick to the surface while drying and may damage the front. This method works best for me. Some people prefer to finish the front first, but I like to start with the back. Once everything is coated, I leave it dry overnight. The next morning, before I continue, I have a few small rituals. I light a candle with aromatic oil in a small burner, turn on music, usually classical, and create a cozy atmosphere in my studio. I spend a moment with my pets. Sonia likes to explore, and Nanook prefers to lie down and relax. I check the oil, light a fresh candle, and soon the studio fills with a beautiful scent. The music is on, everything feels calm, and now I'm ready to work. Before moving to the front, I decided to decorate the edges with a crystal chain. This is something I've tried before and it added a lot of charm and elegance. It really elevates a final look. To attach the chain, I use super glue, which I worked with many times. The only downside is that if it gets on your fingers, they become very sticky and it's hard to clean off. First, I measure how much of the chain I need. It's easy to cut with scissors. Then I cut the second piece to the same length so both earrings match. I use a toothpick to apply a small amount of glue along the edge. It's very important not to use too much. If needed, I switch to a soft small brush to spread the glue more evenly. Then I gently press the crystal chain onto the edge and hold it for a few seconds. It usually adheres very well and sets quickly. I work step by step because it's difficult to place the entire chain at once. Gradually I cover the whole piece, and here is the result. The glue dries with seconds and I am not too worried about touching it, but sometimes I reinforce the ends with a little extra glue to secure everything. For the earrings where I didn't use a crystal chain, I finish the edges with a black paint marker. It dries quickly and gives a clean, defined look. One thing to keep in mind is that sometimes it can react slightly with epoxy, but I'm aware of that, and honestly it still looks quite nice, even adds a bit of character. I choose black because it matches the lace beautifully, but you can use any color you prefer. Finally, I add a very thin line along the front edge. It's a small detail, but it really completes the piece and gives earrings a more elegant finished look. Step by step, I finished coloring the edges of each piece, and look at them now. I also forgot to mention that I added a crystal chain to the blue earrings. The result is amazing. Every color looks beautiful in its own way. The next step is protection. Since this lace is delicate and thin, I want to seal it well. You can use varnish or Mod Podge, but this time I'm using ultraviolet resin because it gives a stronger protection and also makes the color and glitter stand out even more. To make the process easier, I use a large sticky pad. It keeps the earring from moving while I apply the resin, which is very important. If the piece moves, the work becomes messy very quickly. I cut the pad into 4 parts so it's easy to use, and I keep reusing the pieces until they become too messy. Then I place the earrings on the sticky pad, usually starting with the larger pieces and finishing with the smaller ones. Once everything is in place, I begin applying the resin step by step. As always, I check everything carefully, making sure there are no gaps, uneven edges, or missed areas. I'm not a perfectionist, but I do like things to look neat and well made. Quality matters to me. Once the resin begins to cure and harden, the earrings already starts to look even more beautiful. Here's the first finished pair, almost like a test pair, and I added black hooks. They look gorgeous, elegant, light, and very refined. I really love how they turn out. Then I continue with the rest. Of course, I use the small drill to make the holes for the hooks and connectors. For these earrings, I choose hypoallergic dark colored hooks, not silver and not gold, but a special darker finish. Still, you can use any hooks you prefer. And here they are, all finished. It's honestly hard for me to choose a favorite pair because I love all of them. Even the larger ones are very lightweight and they look elegant enough to wear with many different outfits. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you in the next video.